Good day, viewers. You're watching Nothing But the Tea with me, your host, Jemima Ndebele, and soos julle ken en ons ken, julle hou van stories. And because we know you guys like stories, we have a kettle today with my lovely guest, Niita Shikongo, commonly known as SheCantGo. She is a multifaceted creative that is one of the most simple ways to explain her, because she's not one that's easy to explain, if we're being quite frank. And today we will be discussing, drum roll please, this is part 1 of a little series I call Taking Out the Trash. And for part 1, I don't mean taking out the men, but part 1, we will be talking about are men trash and all that goes with the men are trash trope.
Very deep.
It's interesting. So I would love for you guys to, have questions prepared for part 2 and also part 3. Part 2 will then be Are Women Trash? And part 3 will be an amalgamation where we bring these two individuals together to discuss the trashness that comes with the genders or the sexes.
The penultimate.
Yes, that. So this is the build-up. So Niita, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to this conversation because things such as people saying men are trash. It's a common occurrence.
It gets the girls going.
Yeah, exactly. Be it on Twitter, be it in daily conversation, your girl chat, that group chat. So how about we dissect this topic and we start with what constitutes a trash man?
I feel like it's very subjective. I think it's subjective based off of your experiences in life, what you expect to see in a man, whether it's platonic or in a romantic relationship. But what constitutes a trash man? I think when it comes down to it, somebody who doesn't have respect for women in the context of this conversation, somebody who doesn't see and appreciate women, somebody who sees women more as a tool, a thing to use, than as an equal or a human being as themselves. I think.
I fully agree, but I think it's also important to, add on to the fact that men are trash also stems from the toxic sides of masculinity that then make misogyny what it is. So that is then like the lack of empathy.
I can't leave out the murderers, the rapists, the abusers. Goodness gracious.
And even the subtle misogynist, you get these
emotional abuse is still abuse.
It is still abuse.
Yeah.
Verbal abuse is still abuse. Psychological abuse is still abuse.
100%.
So I think it's also important to note that men are trash can then also move into corporate spaces where you find, this is getting heated. Where you find men that use their privilege, because I think men are trash stems from privilege, basically, and it's just
toxic masculinity.
A group of people that have long been oppressed, women, now voicing and speaking up against that privilege.
Yeah, I think I can't remember when the movement started. I know it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I think it was driven by women being tired of being oppressed. I think women were angry, women were emotional, women were tired, and they were just like, crap, man, like, you guys are trash.
Yeah, women were fed
You're
up.
trash.
We're still fed up.
It came from a place of exhaustion and frustration to say, like, let's start conversations about what is really going on and the fact that we've been silent about all this mistreatment for years, for decades, for centuries.
Truly.
Because it dates back so far.
It does.
That's why the patriarchy is the way it is.
It does. And that's why
it's not something that happened overnight.
Exactly. And that's why patriarchy does exist.
Yeah.
I think. But also, if you are to say men are trash in a public space, you are most likely to be met by the famous
Literally
phrase.
Last week, somebody was trying to fight me. A friend of mine, we were speaking about, I think there was a woman that was murdered or something, and I was like, yo, men are trash. And it just came out as, it's kind of like instinct now.
At this point.
It's a part of my left arm. And my friend was so angry. He's like, yeah, it's not all men. It's hashtag some men are trash. I'm like,
Exactly that.
The hashtag, the movement is not about one person, or it's not about the 2% that don't, do anything, or that are perfect as they think they are.
Truly, because in doing so, in saying not all men are trash or some men are trash,
Yeah, you're
you are
discrediting the movement.
Exactly,
You're taking away from it.
because now there is simply a distraction tactic. That's what I think. Because by saying not all men are trash, now you're not pulling our focus to the men that are trash. You're diverting it to the men that aren't.
100%. No,
And
my
that
thing
is
is
not the
also
point.
my thing is also some of these men who say that, you know, I don't abuse and I've never murdered somebody and I've never raped somebody. You stood at a bar when your friend slipped something into somebody's drink.
Truly.
You know, you tolerated harassment and abuse in a workplace and you didn't say anything or you didn't stand up for somebody. So what does that make you?
Exactly. And it's not just, if you're going to say not all men are trash, then please do tell me what are you doing in your capacity as a man
to make
that
the
is
world
not
better for women.
Exactly. As
Tell
a
us.
man that is part of the not
Please
all
drop
men
it in
are
the
trash.
comments if you're watching.
Please do tell us. As a man, what are you doing? What are you doing to ensure that your reputation is then protected? What are you doing? Are you calling out your friends on their misogynistic behaviors? Yeah, I'm acting you, Desmond. I'm
That's
kidding.
No, but that's the thing. Again, women are the ones are the vulnerable demographic. We're the minority. And again, we're still the ones that have to stand up and create these movements and go fight and go protest.
Exactly.
And go write petitions up and stuff.
As
what are
if
you guys
enduring
doing?
it is
What are
not
you
enough.
doing? Nah,
We're
bruh.
forced to endure it, and then we're also forced to fight against
Nah, my
it.
friend. I can't cook and then also wash the dishes, friend. Please.
And you know, there's actually this thing of now I read up on it because I was actually reading up on this conversation, and apparently statistics show that if in a household where the woman is then the breadwinner, then men would then try and retaliate through subtle things such as, okay, then you're going to cook and you're going to do the dishes and you're going to be the breadwinner. And that is a means of me protecting my masculinity.
It's crazy.
That's toxic, guys.
I read an article about, I think it was an Indian man who murdered his wife and she was the breadwinner. Like, I don't know if he was jealous or frustrated because he wasn't the one, you know, bringing home the bank. And then he murdered her because of his ego and his like frustration. And I'm just like, you're trash.
You're trash.
You're trash.
It's as simple as that.
That's what this whole conversation is about. That's what this whole hashtag and this movement is about.
Yeah.
It's not about you that, you know, buys people flowers and stops and gives people candy. It's not about you.
It's not about
Please,
that.
Festus, if you're watching and you're making this about you, rest.
Yeah, really. And take notes, man. Also, only treating women that you're attracted to with respect is not respect. It's not just for the ones at the back.
Girl,
it's
we're
not
preaching the gospel today.
It's really not.
I had an open discussion with some friends and they were highlighting how I'm such a great person and I'm a gentleman and so on. And I was like, that doesn't constitute, you know, it doesn't make you a good person.
Exactly.
If that only applies to your mom and your sisters and your cousins and your other friends, your other, you know, female women friends, if you can't do it to just a random woman that you see on the street. Because if you mistreat that, just that one woman, you're part of the statistics.
You really are. You really are. So if you're going out of your way to make a woman uncomfortable by means of catcalling, you're trash.
Exactly.
You are trash.
Just generally, if you're doing something for someone, man or woman, in order to gain something, then you need to relook what you're doing. I mean, please. I'm opening the door for you so you can give me your number.
Go back to the drawing board. Go back to the drawing board, my
Just rewind, Coco. No. It's not coming together.
It's really not. And this is the tea that we need to spill. Because clearly, people aren't getting the memo or they didn't get it, hey?
Nah, they didn't.
They didn't.
But then that also questions the movement. Like, are we beyond the outrage of the hashtag and men are trash? Is there something else that we need to do now? Because even like in marketing, for example, if your messaging is not coming through to the audience that you're trying to get to, depending who it is, then maybe you need to change the messaging or the way you're putting it out there. Because the hashtag, the movement we've established has been around for years.
It has.
But still today you will go to a bar or place and have a conversation with somebody and they still don't get it. So maybe we need to change the messaging or the way we package the men are trash movement.
I get that.
I don't know.
But I think it's also people meet it, especially men. They meet it with so much
animosity. Yeah,
that is
it's provocative.
That is simply because
you are dusty, you are dirty, you are trash.
Like Facebook, even they consider it hate speech.
Yeah, I don't go on Facebook with these kind of chats.
Like really, they
it's
consider
a huge
it
waste of time.
they they consider it hate speech. So whenever you post men are trash, your post will be removed immediately.
Hectic.
So then it also just comes back to the point of like people think it's generalized, like the men are trash movement, which is not where that not all men are trash thing stems from. But then again, saying men are trash, it is creating a platform for us to universally quantify which men and what type of men.
I mean, look at the
stats.
stats. I was reading stats coming out of SA, I think it was last week. Between January and March alone, I believe there were around 10,000 rapes reported in South Africa. Just between January and March. And those were just the ones that were reported. And then you also take the next step and think about women who weren't recorded as rape statistics, but as murder statistics.
Yeah.
Or the women who didn't have, the courage to go and report because, I could risk my life or I could lose my job, whatever the case may be.
And most of the time, rape is familiar. It's somebody that you know. Yeah. So it could possibly be that it has actually been happening continuously and it's a relative of some sort. And it's such a sensitive thing.
Especially in the black community.
Exactly, in the black community.
Men are protected.
Oh, men in the black community. I know. I need a special episode for men.
I need a shot.
Oh my gosh.
This topic is heavy.
I know. Men in the black community, y'all have it too good.
No, it's crazy. Like I remember when the Me Too movement also came out and like a lot of, perpetrators were being outed and stuff. And somebody came out and they're like, yeah, you're ruining these men's lives. They have families. They have bills to pay. And I'm like, and the survivor?
Exactly.
Is she just a paper bag?
Exactly. And her psychological
she doesn't have family.
Because her
she doesn't have kids
well-being will
or
affect
a job.
all those other elements.
Exactly. So why are we not thinking about it on a level page, on a level playing field?
But do you think that the movement, like the men are trash movement, do you think it helps or it hinders the relationship between the sexes?
In what way? Platonically or romantically?
In all the ways, dog. Because it's actually, I think in a way, it could be both. Because it really depends on how the men receive it. Yeah. Because if you're open to, okay, you say men are trash.
They are the targeted audience.
Why. If you're willing and you meet it with an open mind, I think it could then open room for conversation between the sexes to actually then establish, okay, why is it that you feel like my sex is trash and yours isn't? Women, we're coming for you also.
I know, guys. Let me not get into that. That's not my chat, but there they I personally feel like it's more positive than negative. I can see it in my friendships. I can see it in, romantic encounters that I've had with people. Men are more cautious now.
Yeah.
A lot of men are more respectful now. Those that are open-minded, those that do read and those that do follow up and those that do understand what the movement is about. You saw that there was a shift in the way that men were conducting themselves. And I feel like that can only be a good thing. I don't know if it was out of fear or out of genuinely understanding what men are trash is about and why I should be a better person and not just a better man. But I think it was a good thing. If it hinders, it's more on the man's side, as you said, because it's about how you receive it.
Exactly.
If you think it's a personal attack on your account, number one, you need to introspect and ask yourself why you have issues with the movement that is not targeted at you, but rather at groups of men who are carrying out, this abuse and this oppression against women. Why do you have a problem with women finding their voice and speaking out? Why do you have a problem?
Why? Like really, why, dog? Oh my gosh. I think it's concerning that you have to be really narcissistic to take a whole movement and make it about yourself.
Hi, Boba Fett.
I think that is the epitome and the pinnacle of narcissism. To be able to take a whole movement and redirect it to yourself.
But I guess it's about who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Like if somebody comes out or like comes at me and cusses at me or calls me something, just the person I am, I will likely not be bothered because I know who I am. I'm steadfast in who I am. But as a man, again, that's why I'm saying you need to introspect. Why do you have a problem? Maybe there's something that, you're not telling people that you've actually done or that you've been an accomplice of. Why are you so guilty, I feel is the word. Why do you feel so guilty? Yeah. I mean, the movement was meant to stir up these conversations so that we make communities and the world and working environments, whatever spaces women are occupying, safer and better spaces for them. It wasn't, I guess it was, a bit aggressive, not physically like at men, but that was the purpose of the movement, to bring about change. Why do you have a problem with change that's benefiting women?
And simply to start a conversation.
Comes back to the patriarchy. You're happy where you're at.
Yeah.
Even if you are not directly a part of the problem, you're happy with everything continuing the way it has and will be because you're benefiting from it.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think we can say to all men, this is not an attack. I think such conversations need to happen so that men can also realize the ways in which women consider them to be trash.
Yeah.
Because I think they tend to forget also that, hey, look, if
they,
I'm
they
not
don't
being,
forget. They're just ignorant, man.
Also the thing
they
is,
know.
they just think that, okay, if I'm not being trash, then men are not trash.
Exactly.
But also, what are you doing to help the next man not be trash?
Yeah. I think there was also a thing that I realized, which was, I think, another positive thing, was that men started to have conversations amongst themselves and be like, damn, like, where did this thing come from? And why do people feel like we're trash? What is it that we're doing? Like, oh, actually, you're not supposed to treat a woman this way. You know, you're not supposed to act like this. If somebody's intoxicated, you know, conversations like around consent, stuff like that started coming out. And people actually started realizing that, oh, maybe I'm not conducting myself the way that I should. So I think if you let something connect to you emotionally, instead of subjectively, then, you know, I guess that will guide the outcome. But if you're focused on, you know, why something has started and what its purpose is, and actually trying to identify with that, then again, positive.
Yeah, and it's also room for growth, man, gents. Please grow. Now, moving on to our last point. There's so much passion in that remark. Great.
I knew her.
Sounds like there are men that you want to add specifically.
It's fine, guys. I'm a changed woman. It's cool.
You've healed.
I've healed. I've moved on.
But do you think, because most people think that men are trash, it's simply, the trope is simply a trend. Do you think that the movement is but a trend and it will phase out eventually, particularly with social media and so on? Or do you then think that it's actually something that has to make a difference and then,
like I said, this thing started years ago, and quite literally last week I was still saying the exact phrase, and for the past years since it started, we still have these conversations because there's still people who haven't reached or received the message. There's still people who haven't fully digested and understood what it means. So I don't think it's a trend. I don't think it's a phase or something that will just come to pass and leave in a few years. It's still around and it will continue to be around because I think there's still so much room for change. As I said, looking at the stats, the way the world is right now, just Namibia also. I think it's a movement that's here to stay. But I think, as I said at the beginning, I think it needs to evolve beyond just a hashtag. What else are we doing? Focusing on the boy child. Are we having counseling sessions at schools? Are we teaching people? Are we having conferences where we actually come in? Because a lot of the time when I go to these conferences like that are men are trash, I perform at them sometimes. I do poetry there. The entire room is women, and there's like 2 or 3 guys at the back, and the messaging is targeted at men, but there's like 3 men in the room. So how much change are you really affecting?
And I think in that you're also just feeding the anger that women really feel.
Yeah, because women leave there like so emotional and everybody's like crying and it's like a really heavy energy in the room. But I feel like you haven't affected much change because the women in the room know what we're talking about and they understand. But the men aren't there. They aren't receiving the message. They aren't receiving people's testimonies to actually see and hear what's going on for those that are oblivious or those that don't really know. So I think the movement, like I said, is here to stay, but I think it needs to be adjusted to the time and also to adjust the messaging so that men receive it the right way. I think still a bit, aggressive and shaky and provocative because it gets the girls going. But maybe we need to change how we package it and how we give it to men so that it's actually productive and effective.
Yeah, truly. So I also think, or I hope,
the boy child needs the same education as the girl child,
and the same investment. Because people go to stretches to really invest in the girl child. But I understand because it's years of oppression and all of that. But ultimately, we need to get to a point where this movement.
But nah, bruh, man. Somebody was saying it's so easy to raise a boy. And I'm like, it's easy because you're not raising your boy.
You're not raising your boy. You're neglecting
your boy. Your boy is watching porn in the room and thinking that that's the way he needs to interact with sex.
And you really
your boy goes out to clubs and he's treating, girls a certain way because you haven't taught him how he should treat or respect a woman.
And people don't have difficult conversations with their boy child.
But you have them with the woman. Why, like with your girl child? Why can't we do it with boy child?
You sit down and you have the sex talk. Do you have that with your son?
Nah, B.
Do you have that with your son?
You just throw back your condoms there and be like, okay.
Yeah. You're not even through it. You leave it in the room while they're at school just to come find it. Now the boy has to figure out how.
Nah, man. Okay. We need to keep the same energy around the park. Truly. I think that's the only way we're going to make change.
I think we should also really get to a point of the movement becoming self-redundant, you know, to know that, okay, it has done its part. It has finished its course.
How will we know that, though?
I think it starts with women and men giving the boy child the same energy. That's where it starts. And educating and making a point to develop and invest.
But I feel like this is a movement that cannot end.
So you think that men will always be trash?
I think there will always be that man or that group of men. And if we stop, it's sort of like assuming that everybody else is going to be fine and, you know, they're going to accept the message and they're going to know. But I think it has to be something that's incorporated the way we force life science down, you know, people's throats.
In order for it to become self-redundant.
Yes, exactly.
But then again, we also need to make a clear distinction that men are trash has nothing to do with the biological nature of men, that a man isn't born trash, because I think that's how the younger people feel about it. The younger boys that are growing up now, they feel like, okay, because this movement, we were born into this movement. Are we then trash by nature? Deep. So I think it's also a point of when you inform and you educate the boy child, making it a clear point that, hey, look, you are not born trash.
Yeah.
You are not biologically trash. You are not inclined to be trash. You can limit their propensity by deciding this is the person that I want to be and introspecting. So yeah, guys.
I guess we've established it's not a trend.
We have established that it's not a trend and that man can do better provided that they choose to do better.
And we're talking to you guys.
Like really.
I hope you don't think this is just a chat here.
It's really just not a chat.
About Festus and Peter.
It's really just not.
There's a Festus and Peter watching, I'm sorry.
And a Desmond. I'm sorry. But yeah, sadly, we've come to the end of this week's conversation of taking out the trash. Be sure to join us again next week for part 2 as we discuss our woman trash.
Whoop.
So from me, Jemima Ndebele, and my lovely guest,
Thank
Niita,
you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I've also learned. I've also grown. Men, I hope you do the same. Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye.